Hi, thank you for joining me on the Boise Art Scene podcast. My name is Morgan. I'm here today with Noble Hardesty, here to talk a little bit about his art and what he's got going on. Can you tell the people, the viewers, listeners, a little bit about what mediums do you work with?
These days, I do a daily painting. Like my wife gives me a prompt, and this by the way all started with Inktober back in 2019, and I have been doing a daily painting since then. I mean, I'm super behind. Like I'm almost a month behind right now, but that is kind of what I do, and that kind of informs and has informed what I'm doing with other things. Like a lot of those, I call them studies. And if something really pops, or I'm like, this idea is really good, and I also post them on social media daily, and I'll get feedback that way that kind of tells me it's just like, okay, this one's hitting, or this idea, and then I may take it to the next step, and so basically I'm creating an idea every day that I don't have, comes from a prompt that my wife gives me, which is great because then I'm not thinking of a prompt. I mean, it just it comes out of the blue, and then I make something that goes along with it.
Yeah. So, and you had told me when we did our interview, gosh, it was a year ago when we did the video.
Years ago, yeah.
When I did the interview before with you where we made a video, you had talked about part of the reason why you started working on those daily prompts and on like the coaster format was to help you minimize a little bit of what you were doing, or kind of focus in on some of the stuff. Because you had said that sometimes you thought that your work got a bit busy in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that that's something that's still been a practice for you, or has it shifted your focus a little bit?
It's shifted. It's really kind of made me, one thing I'll say all day long is it's made me a better artist. You can't help but improve when you've got a discipline like that in your life. And I think that is a super important way to handle things as an artist, and it's not something that I had when I was younger. I just kind of did it all the time. But nowadays it is, if you desire to take it to the next level, this is one of the ways to do it, I've found. So then that point I can do digital. I do a lot of digital stuff these days, just because I've kind of found that even doing a digital study, this is a digital study, so it goes from the coaster to a digital study, and then something I'll paint that I'm not having a ton of questions about executing it. I feel like I wasted a lot of time when I was younger and kind of made some mistakes in my work, and this just having this digital tool has changed how I work, how I, kind of approach things. And I think it's made me faster, and I put out a better product.
Sure. I find myself sometimes, I love working with a computer. I in 2021, I subscribed to Thrasher magazine, and because back in high school, I was a skater, and I used to make collages and stuff. And recently I got the bug again to do, well, I guess about 2 years ago, I got the bug to do it again. I couldn't find anybody that had old magazines, so I subscribed for a year.
Yeah.
And then there's the X-Acto knife kit sitting there next to you.
Okay.
I just sat here the other day and cut out all the interesting to me pictures, and I got a stack of them sitting over there. But I've always found it easier to create from, and even with my video, I've always found it easier to create with pieces that are effectively made by somebody else. I'm taking an interview, so I'm taking somebody else's words and creating something different from it. I'm taking a magazine and creating a collage from that. I'm taking digital images and merging them together to create something new. So like a lot of times I don't consider myself really a creator per se, but I like that, especially the digital workspace where you can go back and forth with things. But the whole point of what I was trying to get in that very roundabout way was that a lot of times I find with digital versus physical mediums, the ability to undo and redo. Sometimes I I find myself over tweaking things, I'm like, oh, I could change this just a little bit more. And at some point, you got to stop, I guess. But do you find yourself ever going too deep with like the minutia on a digital work versus the finality of a physical piece?
In the beginning, but now, I think, well, first, I want to say that I don't think I think every artist begs, borrows, and steals, so we're all imposters when it comes to like putting something out. So I don't know that I would discount what you're doing at all,
Sure.
But in the beginning, it was really, if I'm struggling with something, I walk away from it, because I at this point I have more ideas and I have time to do them. So it's just like, okay, this is not working, so I'm going to jump on to the next thing, and I've kind of found that I just take extensive notes and really have a lot of ideas about what I'm doing. And yeah, and then once you kind of get like a way that you're using things digitally, you have a process. So it's just kind of like, I just kind of run things through that filter, I would say. And, ultimately being, my filter as an artist, but yeah.
So what got you into creating art? What got you interested in that?
It's something I just always knew that I would be doing. I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. I was drawing on walls as a kid, getting in lots of trouble. It was just like, I was just always drawing, and that's just what I was going to do. Even in like going to school and stuff like that, it was just like, I didn't care what a teacher was saying. I cared about what I was drawing in the margins of my trapper keeper. That's what I cared about. So it's always been, kind of a thing, and I think it was just the way I learned was visually, so it was just kind of how everything worked. And I kind of feel like I had a lot of ideas that were interesting and super fun to kind of like put out.
Oh, definitely. I mean, a lot of your stuff has like pop culture references to it, and it's really easily relatable.
Right.
And you've got a bold style to all your stuff. When you see something, you know that it's a noble piece.
That was my goal from the very beginning, is just like to have that style. Again, it's just, that's my filter, and that's what, I really love doing mashup stuff and the pop culture thing, which was not something I did when I was younger. It kind of happened more later. And in the beginning, it was just to get people to come and, just to attract people. Like 25% of what I was doing was, pop culture related. And then here's the other 75, which, you got people in the door. It was a good thing. But I just kind of found that I think there's a sea change going on in the art world. And, and I think it's, partially driven by AI, but I think that there's, I did a lot of shows and stuff this year, and I've never seen so many people trying to get into, let's say, like an art fair, and then just the amount of art fairs and that kind of stuff going on. I'm seeing more creators than I've ever and then you're competing with, all of that as well. So I just kind of found that that the pop culture stuff really resonated with people. And, I really pay close attention to a lot of that, and I kind of, with the whole D&D thing, the Dungeons and Dragons, I just kind of went crazy with that. And just because I loved it so much as a kid. And, the kind of great thing about getting a little older is you're seeing this stuff that was awesome in the past, getting this redo now. So it was to me, it was really kind of fun to jump on that train and get to really play with it. And not to mention, at this point, you have to have, in the art game, you have to have all these like kind of things that you're doing. So with the Dungeons and Dragons, I'm hitting all the kids and I'm hitting all the 50-year-olds. So it's just like, it's been a really kind of perfect, to me, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for and trying to recognize. There's, the 80s, like there's been this huge 80s resurgence, which
sure.
I kind of been like, well, yeah, I grew up in the 80s and, one thing I got to say about the 80s is I didn't love them. They were like culturally, I think that they were some of the like, it was really plastic and like had some shoulder pads on it.
And there was still a lot of like aggression and stuff between
which
different factions.
At that point I just ran into the loving arms of punk rock and, it was just, that's where I landed and which, teaches you the DIY aesthetic and everything like that. And so that has been like instilled in me for life, which is super, kind of cool.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I am a fan myself. I've been known to partake in a little bit of the punk rock. What motivates you to create your art? I mean, you kind of talked on it there. Is there, what drives you to, create art instead of make a table? I mean, not that can't be artwork as well, but what makes you express yourself through drawing and painting versus?
It's just my voice. It always has been. It's the voice I knew. It's the voice I'm comfortable. I mean, to me, I've spent some time not using that voice, and man, those were not good times. So it's just super important that I've got that kind of there. To me, and I knew it young. So, I mean, I feel really fortunate because of that.
Is your primary occupation art?
That's all I do.
Do you do commissions? Do you just sell pieces that you create?
Yeah, I was doing commissions for years and years and years. And I got tired of them, and I was doing a lot of stuff I didn't want to be doing, So again, this is where the sea change kind of comes into it. And I think that, more and more, that stuff's going to go away, I mean, actually the jury's out, but this is kind of where this is where I'm kind of really looking at things, and I've also spent the last few years just following my nose wherever it takes me. That's, which I think has been a really important, and it taught me that I just need to do what I want to be doing. So,
sure.
I'm not against a commission anymore. I got to be into it, but so there was that, I kind of view being an artist these days as being like, living a substantial lifestyle or subsistence. So just kind of having like a subsistence lifestyle that, I had the pleasure of watching, Wild Alaska, one of the kind of semi-reality shows that doesn't make you cringe, that's interesting to watch. And it kind of, I just kind of equated being an artist as to living a subsistence lifestyle. So you've got your beaver trap going, and you've got a fur line, and you've got a gill line in the water, plus some like just hooks on line. So you're trying to catch fish, you're trying to catch a beaver, all the while you're out hunting a moose or a bear. So, I mean, to me, that's just kind of been my approach, and how I think about being an artist these days is you can't rely on one thing. You need to rely, you need to be successful. You need to find as many ways as you can, and you have time to be successful in a bunch of different avenues, Well, and you've been pretty prolific or pretty good with doing shows and things like that. How do you find that to be in the Boise area when you're looking to create or to start up a show? Do you find that you're having to create your own opportunities for those? Or are you finding that there are places that are looking for it? Or as far as like, I've really saturated the market here. So it's like I'm going to be taking time off from doing that stuff here in Boise. But I think you have to create your own stuff, I mean, or at least I did. If I want to do the shows or be in the shows or I need to do it myself, just, and I'm also, I'm not like your out of the box artist. Not that I think any artist is, but there's some definitely like a cookie cutter path you can go. And I have not gone that way, and to me, I'm just like, yeah, I'll do some of that, but, I like all this other stuff too. So And I just had a lot of ideas. It's kind of why I don't think I'll get like I come up for awards and fellowships and stuff like that, and I never get them. I don't test well. I mean, I am doing my own thing, and so it just doesn't fit into a lot of, let's say, traditional boxes.
Sure.
So, and again, I'm just following my nose these days. So I'm just kind of doing like, oh, this looks interesting, and kind of seeing what it does. I'm just having way more fun doing that kind of stuff than paying attention. And I think another thing that I really need to do for myself is I was represented in the early 2000s, so I was at a lot of shows nationwide. Mm-hmm. And I haven't done that since then, so now that I don't have like a ton of obligation, it's kind of the direction I'm going to be going in. And I'm seeing a lot of like galleries doing group shows again, but they're not here, so it's, to me, I'm just going to kind of be riding, that train, because I need to really start creating value for what I'm doing. And I think it behooves me to go get a bigger audience, be able to bring that back here.
Sure.
And show artists, blaze some trail maybe for a couple other artists, get some of that experience and some new ideas under my belt that I could probably bring back here and execute. I think that those are, but I also need to create a better price point. And that's only going to come with growing outside of, really paying attention to that. I think that's kind of what I'm going to be doing in 2024 is I have I'm in a group show at Brassworks Gallery up in Portland in February. And then that's where I'm going to just start going from there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. When I talked with, like Sector 17, both of those guys talk a lot about like going to, like graffiti shows down in like LA and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, you gotta see what's out there, and you've got to learn from other people, right. And you've got to say like, hey, there are people in Potato Town that are right. making cool stuff. Because as part of why I created Boise Art Scene was because I was surprised by how much was going on, art wise in the city. I didn't think that there was. It's just we're this little landlocked space, in between Portland and Salt Lake City, and
it's a weird little island here, Yeah.
But there really is a whole lot of creativity and a whole lot of work going on here.
I think with how conservative it is and everything here, you're going to automatically have like a big kind of movement that I think that's where art kind of develops,
Well, the city, the city of Boise really started pushing, like developing spaces with the art that was around, and then now you see a lot of the other Ada County places, especially, but Nampa, the Treasure Valley as a whole has been kind of beautified in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
You see a lot more art and a lot more people doing work.
Right.
So yeah, I think that it's not a bad thing to say that you want to or need to stretch out a bit more and get some more notoriety in bigger markets.
Yeah, and, I mean, I just had other things going on, and now it's like, okay, let's go do this. I mean, and I'm doing it from a confident place because I feel like I've finally got the chops to really be able to get into and kick some ass in some of those markets.
Oh, the confidence is definitely a big part of it,
It is.
That self-doubt can really lead to self-sabotage, for sure.
Right.
How important is it to you to have a space where you can go and work that you don't have to clean up at the end of the day?
I would say that's becoming less and less a necessity. I mean, if there's anything that I've really kind of made sure was happening was I was shrinking rather than growing, when it comes to like having physical stuff. And, you know, I mean, that's what I did during the pandemic, was just shrink and just kind of like really kind of figure out how you're going to manage the next 30 years of stuff you're going to make, you know? And so to me, you know, people are living in smaller places, you know, so that 4-inch by 4-inch little thing fits in that, you know, so it's, and you can get an original of mine for a super reasonable price.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there, you know, I was kind of really thinking along those lines. And also because I made so much big work that, you know, unless you sell big work, you're stuck with big work. and to me, I want to be pretty Spartan and light on my feet. And so to me, it was like my dedicated space is what, 300 square feet, you know, it's small. And I think I've been the most productive I've ever been in that kind of environment. You know, I don't have a bunch of other stuff that's kind of staring at me, like those paint pens that I haven't used in 5 years, you know, that are sitting there kind of, I think that there was a lot of distraction going on. And I think to really kind of simplify your process and to, if you can, get smaller, that's the way to do it. But to me, it's just been kind of like a goal of mine to stay really small. So you've got a small substrate. I bought like a watercolor set, and you know, Sharpies and ballpoint pens, which are just everywhere. You know, and at that point, you're making art for almost pennies.
Sure.
It's to me, that's such a cool process, and and you can store it easily. To me, it was just like it was a piece of the puzzle that I felt like needed to happen in order for me to like be effective as an artist.
Well, and it makes them very, the coasters are very digestible. They're very, like say, you can store them in a row, and then just like you're looking through album covers, you can go and flip through them at your stall or something like that. Yeah, and I mean, I've got a couple that I've got around that, yeah, I mean, it is a very cool way to get stuff. I've definitely been in artists' houses that have rooms and rooms full of paintings that, you know, and it is one of the, I mean, for me now, I've recently downsized, and so I've had to think a lot about what I have space for and what I can work on. So some of my hobbies are sitting in a storage unit right now, you know, and so I've had to piece part which ones I want to do, and then sometimes I'm, you know, running back and forth. But I do think there is a lot to be said, definitely, for simplifying down to what you're wanting to work on so that you can focus a little bit more on that. So I think having, in your case, that your space where you've like cleared it out to just be what you need for like your coaster work primarily, instead of having, like you said, the paint pens off to the side that you use once in a blue moon or whatever. Do you think that you would be as effective at creating if you had to just work on your iPad on like the couch or something?
Yeah, I'd be fine. You know, it would be no problem, you know, just because that's what I'm doing. You know, it's been, I've got a giant bean bag that I just sit in and I do digital. I just sit there with an iPad and draw. So the thing is that I really like about the process now is like I'm still doing a physical piece, you know, because you know, you talk to digital artists and that's where that's the rub, you know, you can't, it's hard to sell that original, you know, unless NFTs really become a thing, you know, which I love that whole thing too, you know, it's just like, okay, man, if people are into it, then let's do it. But I could totally just get away with going digital all day long, you know, because basically what I'm doing is I'm making a digital piece. And a lot of times, you know, all my, you know, color studies and stuff that I'm doing for, you know, actual physical pieces, they're all done digitally, you know. So it's just almost anything I do digitally these days, You know, and that's kind of one of the things that I'm thinking about doing is putting them out there as like, I would love to paint these. So if you want one,
Oh, sure.
let's
That would
party.
be an interesting.
Right. You know, I think there's a few, in my last show, I did an owl painting from a digital piece that I ended up putting the digital piece out because the owl painting was so popular as a print. And that way, I kind of want to get away from making a print from an original. I'd much rather make a print from a digital study that this is what the original, you know, so somebody can have an original. That was a complaint I was kind of fielding a lot. It's like, I don't love that you're making prints of my painting, you know, and it's like, I totally get it. But, you know, I mean, this is passive income and I'm not going to pass that up.
Sure.
And so I hopefully this is like a solution to that.
I think, I don't know, sometimes it feels hard to, and I'm thinking in the world of tattoos, right? I've had a couple of tattoos where I've come in with an idea and then the artist has gone, well, here's what I'm going to do with it, you know? And I think sometimes it's a little bit easier maybe to, if the artist is like, hey, here's something, like in your case where you've got a digital proof that you're like, hey, this is something I would like to make, who would like to see it painted. You know, I think that's an interesting way of approaching it where you are putting the onus of the idea making still on yourself, but I don't know, you're saying, hey, do you want this, instead of like, what would you like? I think it's an interesting twist on that, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and you're not executing a physical piece that you might get stuck having to store. You know, to me, it's just like, I'm not doing that anymore. You know, there's a line in the sand, and it's just, I'm not going to store any more stuff.
Sure.
You know, you were talking about going to a storage unit and stuff like that, and it's just like, one of my favorite things is getting rid of that storage unit.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask here is, why is art important to you?
It's important to me. I would just take it back to that's almost been the only thing that has been important to me my entire life. You know, it's cost me relationships. It's just what I'm meant to do. And that is where I'm at, you know. I mean, I don't know that there was anything else for me, you know. That's just, it's very simple. That is what I was supposed to do. And if I'm wrong, shit.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anybody that can tell you that you're wrong with creating art, right? I mean,
Right.
I mean, I guess whether you get a response to it or not, but I mean, you know, there's so many different people out there. There's so many different types of art. You know, part of what I try to do with this is to, you know, branch out into all sorts, you know, even some of the ones that might, you know, the people that aren't going to necessarily end up in a gallery, you know, but still deserve recognition,
Sure.
you know, or some sort of
accolade or you know, I mean, it's just a recognizing. Yeah, I think everybody should be creating, you know. I think if you can, if that's, you know, and I would never discourage anybody from doing some stuff. I mean, I like it, but it's, you know, and I'm not also not out to be critical either. If I don't like it, I don't like it, you know. I mean, that's it.
How do you get your art seen? You know, you've mentioned shows and stuff like that. What's your, do you have a website? Do you have social media? How do you get those out there?
Yeah, you know, I think I have a website, which is noblehardesty.com. So I've really kind of gone online to make sure that I'm being seen. So, you know, and I've managed to get a pretty decent following. But I've also had to, you know, right now we're relearning a new algorithm. And so that, you know, it came at a pretty bad time. But, you know, to me, I think that between social media, you're using social media to push everybody to the website, and it's kind of and then you're doing appearances by doing things like art in the park, and so you're just trying to hit a bunch of different things, and now that I've kind of like taken the whole role-playing game thing to the next level, I'm starting to get into all those groups and that kind of stuff. Because I think nowadays, more than ever, you're going to need to kind of like partner up with some things or really kind of focus in a certain area, especially if everybody in their own echo chambers. Sure. How many echo chambers can you get in?
So doing some collaboration, doing some specialization. Right. Absolutely.
Do some, do your fan art, whatever that may be, do mashup stuff. I think it's super key. And I think that's what's really bringing people to the table.
How do you, I guess you've kind of talked a little bit about how you want your art and practice to evolve and your next steps. So what's in 2024, what's that going to look like for you? You mentioned that you've got a show in Portland in February. Right. Do you have any other things scheduled so far, or any thoughts about?
I think my goal right now is to focus on marketing. I've fortunately I've created this deep well of work, so I can like not focus on it as much, and I'm really going to be jumping into marketing in this next year. So we'll see what that kind of produces. I'm trying to really figure out a way to make marketing fun, and
that's a challenge, isn't it?
I think that's my next hill. My next hill. Hopefully, it doesn't turn into a mountain. Hopefully, it's not volcanic. Hopefully, it's just let's get up over this hump, kind of create how you go about doing things and really start pushing. Because I'm really curious to see, one of the things that I've never done, but I hear all the time, is that the amount of time that you spend making something, you need to spend an equal amount of time marketing it. And I've never done that. And so now I think I want to kind of dip my toes in the waters, and I'm sure it's going to get real messy. I'm going to make some bad content for sure. So it's just kind of like finding out what that voice is. That's the next thing. And again, I want to make it a whole lot of fun. I haven't jumped. I'm thinking like right off the bat. I've been talking to you about Chet Zar and his whole thing, which I think is a really interesting way and a good way to go about things. But I'm also looking at like Skinner, who's doing all the D&D stuff, and has been for years. Just kind of look at what he's kind of put out. And I haven't paid attention to him in years, but, I know that it'll probably be, I think he just did stuff with Mountain Dew, so it's just like, or you've got Ashley Dreyfus here in town, she is doing she's all over the place, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I just saw a picture of her in Anaheim, I think, at a show.
Yeah, so I mean, she's what a great little leader there, and and she's got the voice that, as an artist, you need to pay attention to that voice, and figure out if you can have that voice, or or how you go about making that voice happen for you and what that looks like. And so I think there's a cool frontier, and I think with it's an important one to kind of cultivate, and I'm looking forward to finding a way to like it, to do it.
Oh, and I think it's a real interesting concept of that you need to put in as much time marketing as you do creating, because I think that's where myself and most creators that I talk to kind of fall short is that marketing side of things. And one of the people who does really well with getting his name out there and being active on social media, I thought was Tom Caldos, who I interviewed in the past. He, like, every day he's on social media looking at it, posting at least a little bit of something every day, whether it's a process video or a finished piece, or just even him like saying hi, he's always getting something out there. And Yeah, sometimes it can feel like a hamster wheel, but sometimes if you can find the joy in it, I think it can be a enjoyable, rewarding thing,
Absolutely. And I think, if you have followers that are there, and I have people that no matter what I put out, they're liking it, sharing it, commenting on it, so it's just like, that's who you want.
The dedicated people and the people who come back and say, "Oh, I love seeing that." They are definitely the people that keep you going.
So I mean, there's that, and so you want that, and you kind of want to create an audience. And I think the other thing that I've kind of noticed this year was, especially because I did so many shows this year, that how many artists that I talked to that have suffered this year, have like taken big hits, just aren't seeing the money they were, and I'm just kind of like, okay, we need to all pay attention to this, because and why is that? And
I've heard a lot of people say that it's harder to find people wanting to buy original art. A lot, it seems like people have started, and I'm sure the economy has a part of it, but people are more turning towards the things that you can buy at like Target, a pre-framed printed picture versus the thing that you buy on Instagram from the artist, you know. So
no, and I that's not going anywhere, So it's just like, make your own, and that's why I just have this huge print offering. It's just like, and I'm finding that, as part of the sea change, is that I've gone from selling more originals to more prints. And I sell a lot of stickers and pens. And so, it's just to me, I'm having a lot of fun in that arena. And I think it's where my nose led me. And there's a reason for that, and I kind of listen to that stuff. And, but it allows me to, because one of the goals that I'm also doing is trying to, for those people that have been collecting originals and stuff like that, my prices need to start going up so it creates value. And, not everybody's going to be able to hit those original prices, and that's okay.
Sure.
Because I have a giant setup of, if you're liking the work, you get here, I'll probably put out a book.
I mean, one of the hardest things for me in the world of freelancing has been pricing, because on the one hand, you've got to price yourself for your value, but you also, a lot of times when you price yourself what you're worth, people run away because things get expensive, especially when you're talking about creative work, because you might have a 30-second video or a painting or a digital drawing at the end of it, but it doesn't mean that, it didn't take 8 or 20 hours of work to get it just so.
I had a friend, Dave Darrow, that always said that you're paying for what I know today, and you're paying for everything I know coming up to this point. So it's just, and I think that that's a really good way to go about things.
I forget the exact rap producer. I think it was T-Pain. He said, basically, just because I can do something in 30 minutes that it takes another person, 4 hours to do, doesn't mean you should pay me less, or you should only pay me for 30 minutes. But, you're paying me for all the experience that it goes into doing that in 30 minutes versus, making it look easy is because I'm so experienced with it.
Right.
So but there's then imposter syndrome and everything else. Because I'm sure that you're probably less worried about that these days. But
I'm not. It's not something I really think about.
Like I said, you've got a very distinctive style. You've got people who like your work for it being your work.
Right.
I was talking earlier a little bit about how sometimes it's hard to ask an artist to create something, like, I want you to make this, and I want you to draw me a horse. And you're like, well, I only draw sea creatures. I don't know.
Right.
But when I had my leg tattooed, I told the artist, like I want some stuff, I'm like, I want it nautical themed, I want it old. I'm like, I want it in your style. I'm like, here's some ideas that I have, but you come up with this. And I think that, and then she came back and she was like, okay, here are the pieces that I think would work great. And, I think that's that collaborative work, that letting I don't know, I guess that's part of commissioning, isn't it? It's that collaborative creation. But again, I think that it's easier to have an artist come with an idea versus trying to have them. But I think most artists are happier creating their original ideas versus somebody else's idea. I don't know. Maybe maybe not.
I'm going to chew on that for just a second, but like initially my reaction to that is I've illustrated so much over the years that I need information. So, if people are like feeding me stuff, that helps me so much more to get to a certain thing, I mean, I like lots of things, so I feel fortunate to be able to put out lots of different things. But, I mean, again, it's like you've got to, if an artist isn't feeling it, you don't want what they're going to put out.
Do you think that there's anything that would ever make you stop doing art?
No. Not anything, I mean, I think if I lost my hands, I'd try and do it with my feet. I think I'd be expressing in some way, shape, or form even if you end up with a debilitating disease or, anything unforeseen like that. No, I think I'd be finding a way to kind of put things out. Even if it was just, at this point, I've been writing more. So it's like, I could see even going to, you could dictate, and kind of put stuff out like that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Sure. So
there's I will express in some way, shape, or form for the rest. I mean, it's just kind of what I do. And if I didn't do it, I would not be liking myself. And that's I need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the artists that I talk to, that's kind of the way that it seems like they feel. It's like creating is getting something out that they have to.
Oh yeah. I would say that all day long.
Is there anything that you want to talk about that I haven't asked you about?
Mostly I would say something along the lines of, if you're a creator, it's even though times seem crazy right now because so much is changing, there's going to be some cool shit that comes out of it, and it's just, if you can adapt, that's.
Do you have any advice for an artist that might be starting out? If you were trying to say, hey, to get your footing, you might try this.
I would definitely say just really look to your do-it-yourself people. I think if you're waiting around for somebody to do something, it's never going to happen. And I would say wear a lot of hats. If a gallery needs somebody to go schlep crates, go schlep crates. Because more than likely, they're going to show you how to hang stuff and how to properly put out your artwork, or whatever that looks like. I think if you can, go get on a jury selection, so you're jurying shows. So you're seeing not only are you seeing what an artist goes through to prepare to do a juried show, because I think that those are coming back and they're super huge. And they're great for your CV, which you're going to need to get into other shows, and that way you can start creating a record of your sales. I mean, it's just like, you need to put together a package and a CV, you need to be super well-rounded. And a CV that you can hand over to somebody. It's like, here's what I do in sales. This is, data, which is the most boring thing you could possibly ever do. And I spent 20 years not doing it. And I would say, really, if you could build that muscle early, I would say absolutely do that.
Well, and I can definitely say, too, that I've seen in my own career line, judging for awards, it can be eye-opening, you know.
Sure.
It's just a different way to look at people's work, and it's a way to look at what somebody considers their best work, and maybe even the explanation of why they think it's their best work. And I don't know, I think that there is a lot of value to that, judging shows if you can.
Yeah, if you can, because you're seeing what an artist goes through, and you're seeing both sides of it and what it means to judge. You know, you may love this piece, but the rest of the panel doesn't, and you've got to like explain why and go through all that stuff. You know, it's a pretty cool little process, and it's enlightening to kind of deal with people that aren't artists and what's going on in that brain banana there.
Well, Noble Hardesty, thank you so much for joining me. If I can have you one more time to say what your website is, what your Instagram and Facebook are.
Okay, website is noblehardesty.com, NOBLEHARDESTY.com. Facebook is just Noble Hardesty. You know, and I also have like an artist page there called The Art of Noble Hardesty that I'm figuring out whether that's going to be my main thing. This is where I'm going to be learning things. So that may be changing. And then on Instagram, it's Noble_Hardesty.
Excellent.
And all those, I'm super easy to find. And on my, if you wanted to on the Instagram, I think the second link down is my link tree. So that gives you everything.
And so if somebody wanted to find out what shows you were doing and stuff like that, you'd find out through the Instagram's link tree or probably any of your social medias.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, Noble Hardesty, thank you so much for joining me on the Boise Art Scene podcast. I'm Morgan McCullum, and we'll catch you next time.
Sounds good.